All right, well, welcome everyone. We have a full house today. It's good to see. We do have quorum. So my name is Eric Geyer. I'm going to bring this meeting to order. This is the March meeting for the Jackson County Public Safety Coordinating Council. So our first presentation today is from Joe Ferguson, who, as I said, is the Deputy Director of our Juvenile Division within Community Justice. And it's also true that Joe has been instrumental on the state level of shaping where juvenile services have gone over the past 2 decades. He is the past president of the Oregon Juvenile Directors Association, and as it requires us to do so, he will be presenting on the Juvenile Crime Prevention Plan, as well as giving us some information regarding the Juvenile Crime Prevention Evidence-Based Practices Checklist and Basic and Diversion Services. So, Joe, I'll turn it over to you, and thanks for presenting.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you guys for having me here to present. If you have any questions along the way, Jasmine will be watching because I'll lose most of you when I start sharing my screens. So as Eric mentioned, I'll just go through a little bit of an overview of our juvenile division kind of framework, all this, and then into the actual juvenile crime prevention plan. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It got sent out earlier, so I'll hit some of the high points in terms of what we're using the money for and what services that pays for. So under our juvenile division, so we have currently 10 probation officers, and we split those up. 4 do our intake and assessment. So those are new police reports coming in. Probation officers meet with youth and families, go through those. They conduct a risk assessment, and then kind of determine which direction to go. Can we deal with those through diversion, or do we need to take them through court? And then we have 4 probation officers that deal with kids in the community. 3 of those are set up geographically. So we have White City out, including Rogue River, Phoenix, Talon, Ashland, and then Medford, and then a little bit of overflow for those. And then we have 1 within that does our specialized caseload of sex offenders. That's all they have on their caseload. And then the 2 diversion services, one of those is paid through the juvenile crime plan funding, and the other deals with our violation, drug and alcohol cases, in addition to our diversions, or what we call our formal accountability agreements. So in lieu of going to court, they're placed on those diversion agreements. So we really look at a lot of different things in terms of what can meet the needs of the victims, community, and youth. And really the emphasis is on community safety, accountability, and competency development. So giving new skills to youth as they come through our system and leave better. And then based on risk level is kind of what the level of supervision and services. So the higher risk youth are the ones being placed on probation. Those medium risk youth could be either on our diversion or probation. And then those lower risk youth really try to refer them back out into community-based programs, kind of out of our system to get those services. Our detention facilities, so we have 2 20-bed detention units, so a total of 40 detention beds. Currently, we are staffing about 16 to 24 beds, so really 1 unit. Our staffing ratio is 1 staff to 8 youth. And so currently what we're doing is during the week, we're staffing it at 16 beds. The weekends, starting swing shift on Fridays, and through the weekend, we can go up to 24. So youth that have been court ordered by the court to do court-ordered detention days can do that on the weekends. And then if there was regular school, they would go back to regular school on Monday. Right now, it's either virtual or hybrid. We have a full-time education program offered, provided by the Medford School District. We do a 220-day education program versus the regular, so all the way through summer school, year-round. And then the kind of nice thing we've added additionally, the career technical education, the CTE classroom. So we have a laser engraver, a CNC machine, and a screen printing machine that we are now going to be utilizing through both the detention and our residential program. And then we've also moved to using Chromebooks within both of our detention programs. So youth that come from other schools and into detention versus instead of just doing packet work, which has been historically what we've done, we have now moved to the Chromebooks so they can access the Medford School District curriculum and testing and things like that. We do daily recreation activities. We have daily evidence-based skill building groups. We provide active interaction and supervision by staff. They're on the floor with the youth, interacting all the way through their shifts. Our mental health and substance abuse services are provided by Options of Southern Oregon. We have a part-time mental health counselor that works in detention up to 20 hours, and then also the substance abuse up to 10 hours as needed for assessments. Our medical services are provided by WellPath, same as the jail, and then we offer daily visitation opportunities. Currently, those are fairly restricted because of COVID, so we have a couple non-contact visitation opportunities, and then we also have phone calls and Zoom as well for approved visitors. Our residential program has a capacity of 15 beds. We're currently staffing it at 10. So our ratios are 1 staff to every 5 youth, and that's based on our licensing and approval through Department of Human Services. They also have full-time education programs, same as detention year-round, and also the access the CTE classroom, the Chromebooks, and additionally through U715, they've developed a VOTEC program, so they do woodworking, welding, soldering, automotive. So they have some additional opportunities that our detention staff do, our youth do off-site. And they also have daily recreation both on and off-site, the daily evidence-based skill building in groups and individual works, the interactive supervision by staff, and then also Options provides our mental health and substance abuse services over there at a much higher level in terms of treatment-oriented and medical services by WellPath. And then our youth are able to go off-site and have home visits as well with parents, guardians. Just some quick statistics. This is our 12-year data trends on referrals or police reports in youth. So that top blue line is our police reports. The kind of orangey line is our youth. We've had a steady decline for more than 12 years. That's a national, statewide, and local trend. As you can kind of see, this last year, we've had a slight uptick in police reports on youth. And so, you know, which is an interesting piece, because even with COVID, we've showed a slight increase. Our last quarter of last year really fell off quite a bit because of COVID, but we were seeing some pretty strong other quarters on an increase on that. About 66% of our overall referrals are criminal. And to give some comparison citywide wise, is Medford accounts for about 58% of all of our referrals. So a little bit more than half now. It used to be about 50%, but it's crept up a little bit more these days. So. And then this is just our risk assessment. So that top one's our initial assessments and the bottom one's our reassessment. The blue lines are high risk youth. The red color is our medium and the green's low risk. Some interesting just numbers on that top one. On the initial one, 64% of youth demonstrate some school issues of either not attending or chronic absenteeism. 71% have peer or other relationship issues, 78% behavior problems, 54% family functioning issues, 39% substance abuse, and about 18% attitude, values, and beliefs. And then looking at, so those are the overall referrals. So every kid that comes in gets that risk assessment, and that's what those come out. If you look at the reassessment, those are kids on probation. And so every 6 months, we're conducting a new risk assessment to update that. And so that's why you'll see that the highest percentage of those are kind of medium risk. So again, those are our high or medium risk youth. But just number wise, so fairly similar on the school issues. It's about 62% that have some struggles in school. But then it jumps to 98% have peer or other relation issues. 100% of those youth have behavioral issues. 80% have family function issues, 80% substance use issues, and 49% attitude, values, and beliefs. So again, those are our highest risk youth. So you would expect those percentages to be a little bit higher as well. You'll notice that we do have some low risk youth on those reassessments, and those would be youth that have been on probation that are now having their risk level reduced, and that's really what we want. And so, because I had mentioned about redirecting lower risk youth out to community-based services, and that's really what we continue to do. But the hope also is that youth on probation reduce their risk towards the end of closures. So. This one just shows our dispositions, kind of what we do with cases. I know it's really busy, and really just wanted to look at the last couple of years in terms of things that have been going on. We've had an increase in probation. That's kind of that golden color. And so number-wise, that's about a 27% increase, 1920 over 1819. And so again, our numbers may be going down, but the severity of offenses or the risk of youth has been going up. And so that's pushing more youth onto probation. That red color is our commitments to the Oregon Youth Authority for either out-of-home placement for residential or the youth correctional facility. As you can see, that's fairly consistent throughout the 12 years. It's been about 3 to 7% of what all of our overall cases. So again, that percentage hasn't changed even though our numbers have. So it's still those highest risk youth that have continued to either commit new crimes or failed to comply with probation conditions that have kind of moved them on through the system onto the state level. Probation's fairly consistent, the last several years on that. Our diversion cases, which is kind of that brown color, have been going down. And I would say, that correlates with our numbers and our reducing down of not providing as many services for low risk kids and trying to get them plugged back into community-based services instead. Our detention population correlates with our overall numbers of referrals going down too. You'll see there's been a slight uptick in our female youth over the last year, but over the last 5 years, it's stayed fairly consistent, about 100 youth on that. Our current average length of stay for youth in detention has increased from about 15 days to 18 days. So with less youth, some are staying longer. That number could be skewed a little bit. As most of you are all probably aware that we've had some pretty high profile cases over the last several years, multiple murders involving youth or serious offenses. So those youth stay a long time, up to a year or more. And so that will push our average length of stay up as well in terms of consistency too. So average population this last year had dropped down to about 14. Part of that was due to COVID. We restricted admissions just like the jail has in terms of more serious person-to-person offenses to try to keep the numbers down as well. So it would have been about 16 and 18 and 19 on that. Then our recidivism, which is a measurement of a youth committing or being referred for a new criminal offense to our department. So it doesn't have to be a conviction or adjudication. It just is a referral. And so we've done very well the last couple of years. We've continued a downward trend. We're sitting about 23% currently. In the States, about 29, and it's actually leveled out and has continued to have a kind of an upward swing in the last 4 years or so on that. So I think that the higher risk youth that we are working with, we're doing a pretty good job in terms of them not committing new criminal acts on this. And then so that's kind of just the kind of quick update on terms of just services numbers and such. And so in terms of the juvenile crime prevention plan, the funding is administered through the Youth Development Division, which is a part of the Oregon Department of Education. And for those that have been around a while, this is really the old Commission on Children and Families that we used to have a local agency that dealt with all the funding come through, and it used to be a lot of money, and it's dwindled down to our current about $115,000 a year on that. And so each county has a designated agency. For our county, that's the Juvenile Division of Community Justice. And then each biennium, the plan has to be updated and then also approved by the local Public Safety Coordinating Council. So that's why I'm here today. The crime prevention plan funding is part of our continuum that we receive from the state. So these are the three funding streams we get from the state. And so this is what we've are expecting and budgeted for our 21-22. The juvenile crime prevention is $115,201, and then basic and diversion services come through the Oregon Youth Authority, and I'll explain kind of what each of these pay for as well. So of that, just a little over $500,000. That's about 8% of our total juvenile budget. So it's very small, much different than what our adult division has coming from the state, which is majority of the funding on that. Our majority of our funding comes from the county general fund. So the juvenile crime prevention provides some alternatives to detention, some case management services, some behavioral and vocational skill groups, some transitional connection from when youth leave detention in our residential program back to an improved education program. So ensuring that they aren't dropping off on the education piece when they leave our facility as well. And then our basic services, that provides 2 full-time staff in our detention facility and also pays for our contracted medical services through WellPath. And then our diversion services provides 1 full-time staff for our probation, which is our sex offender probation caseload, and then also 2 full-time staff in detention, and then pays for our contracted mental health services in detention. The funding for our mental health services in our residential program is all covered through the youth medical cards. So as I mentioned, we have a standardized juvenile crime prevention risk assessment called the JCP. Again, that captures the risk levels of youth, and it's really used for a measurement of public safety on the likelihood of youth receiving an additional criminal referral within that next 12 months. So all medium and high risk youth is where we're using this money for in terms of looking at those areas off of the risk screening. So school relationships, behavior, family functioning, substance use, attitudes, values, and beliefs are those areas that captures. And then we're also really focusing on a strength-based, restorative, trauma-informed, and evidence-based practices approach on all the services that we provide. So in terms of what we use the money for, so we've renamed this. It used to be a couple different programs, and so now it's called A-STEP, which is Accountability, Skills, Transition, and Education Program. And so this really provides a staff member and also a skills trainer to provide an alternative detention. So youth that have violated technical conditions of their probation, have violated conditional releases from detention, or are currently on diversion agreements and are violating that, can be placed into this program. So it's really what we call as an after school or summer program. We run it Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. They get the cognitive vocational skills groups. We've been working with Medford School District to provide tutoring services and had that almost in place before COVID hit. and schools closed down. So we're still working through the details of that. And then also the case management piece is really when youth leave our detention and residential programs, is ensuring that they're reconnected with the school district they were or where they live, of getting connected to that. So youth aren't dropped through, kind of lost through that transition period as well. And then we have a little bit of funds for incentives to reinforce positive behavior for youth going through not only this program, but also probation and our residential program as well. This is kind of what the money, the $115,000 is. So we currently have a probation officer assigned as our case manager. That pays for about 90% of their salary. And then we have a skills trainer that provides additional help. It also covers for the probation officer if they can't be there. And then the tutoring costs, which would be through the Medford School District, and then incentives. So this would be our annual budget on it for the biennium. It gets doubled for the plan. All right, that's the quick of it. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thanks, Joe. Does anybody have any questions for Joe today?
I would just say that other than renaming our actual program to A-STEP, it's what we've been doing for the last couple of years. Probably the last year we've added the piece on the connection from with youth leaving detention in our residential program to ensure that connection back to their either their school district they came from or the school district they're currently living in.
I have a question now. So 66% of the referrals come in from the police. Is it schools and parents for the rest of it?
Those would be criminal. So the other ones would be non-criminal. So violations. So like our minor possessions would make up that difference. It also would include, we get referrals for runaways that really we can't take any action, but those are all things that are still sent to us. So of the overall referrals, everything we get is 66% is criminal in nature.
Thanks.
I have a question. It was interesting seeing the demographics, the gender demographics in kids. It looks like, well, the numbers are not dramatically different. The proportionality of females is growing. And I'm curious if you're keeping track of other demographics. I think in previous presentations, you've shared a little around race and maybe language, possibly others.
Yes, we do. And I just didn't show that just for the sake of time today, but yeah, we have all of that pieces, and it's all accessible on our website for people too. So we do the same 12-year data trends on those pieces as well. So we do it by age, race, ethnicity.
Do you know if you're seeing any other real shifts in proportionality?
No, they're all pretty consistent with percentages wise we've seen in the past. I mean, we still see a higher percentage of Hispanic youth coming in on that. But
well, if there are no other questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the recommended juvenile crime prevention plan as presented by Joe.
I'll make a motion. This is Jennifer to approve.
Thank you. We have a motion from Jennifer Mylenick.
This is Beth.
We have a second from Dr. Carter, Dave Carter down there. I saw he beat you to it, Beth, just barely. So, all right. Since we have not had any discussion on this, if you are a voting member, I believe, let's see, we are 31 deep on this meeting. Since we do need this to be, it's one of the three things we formally approved. Jasmine, if you wouldn't mind doing one more roll call vote to get us to the next piece, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Lieutenant Aldridge,
Yes.
Lee Ayers,
Yes.
Dave Carter,
Yes.
Chief Clausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Dotterer,
Yes.
Doug Engel,
Yes.
Chair Geyer,
Yes.
Beth Heckert,
Yes.
Barbara Johnson,
Yes.
Danny Jordan,
Sorry, yes.
Jennifer Lind,
Yes.
Judge Mejia,
Yes.
Jennifer Mylenick,
Yes.
Tina Qualls,
Yes.
Mark Regals,
Yes.
Sheriff Sickler,
Yes.
and Rita Sullivan.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Joe, thanks for your presentation today.
Yep. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.